Is there an equivalent of aversion therapy but for bitterness? Because as any of you who watched my other video already know, I had something of a minority opinion on Dispatch. For those of you that are new here, let me bring you up to speed on the lore. Due to overexposure and facts I never asked for, I really came to resent the game Dispatch. If you see, or worse still, leave a comment to the effect of, "Oh my goodness, I cannot believe you would choose to romance Blazer over Vizzy," that is exactly what I am talking about. Now, thanks to that other video, I was able to let a lot of my hatred toward Dispatch go away. I composed my abstract thoughts into actual words, I vented it out in a controlled way, I feel all the richer for it. And now I'm ready to dive into this game with both hands, as indeed I have. Dispatch is a game I really enjoy, but I have to do that through a certain amount of annoyance. Not as in I express my enjoyment through annoyance, as in there is a black wall of annoyance I must pass through in order to enjoy this game. For example, I thought that knowing most of the voice cast prior to playing the game might prove a barrier for immersion, and it kind of was. I still have no idea what Sonar looks like, my mind always autoconnects that voice to Charlie's face. Still, it didn't stop me from appreciating the characters. I could pick out Chase as Jeffrey Wright even without sound, but I still liked him the way the writer wanted me to like him. For the most part. There's that moment where he gets into a fight with Invisigirl, which is a conflict so manufactured I'm sure I could find the factory stamp on it somewhere. In the past, I've seen episodic games have a format, one big explosive moment every episode no matter how forced, which certainly wasn't true for every episode of Dispatch, but it was true here. "Hey Chase, why don't you like Invisigirl?" "Oh, it's because she gives off bad vibes, and since you like her, I have to doubly hate her for both of us." Okay, man, that's not a reason, but okay, sure. Also, patently false, since this was from my first run where I was interested in Blonde Blazer. Unless Chase meant that I was trying to support Invisigirl's heroics, and that was just too much for him to handle. It would have been better if Chase had said, "I don't like her because in your second meeting she punched you in the face over a minor disagreement." Then during the fight he could cite how people like Robert and Blazer are trying to help her while all she does is act sarcastic and aloof. This isn't meant to attack Vizzy, nor would it put Chase in the right, but the point is that now it anchors his problems with her in something tangible, negative traits that the audience has seen and then can be overcome. However, I did use the word enjoy and the word dispatch in the same sentence earlier, which is still true. I had criticisms before this, I'll have criticisms after this, and I would still rather cut off my own fingers with a kitchen spoon than get sucked any deeper into this fandom's mania, futile as that may be. But I did laugh at the dialogue. One of my favorite books of all time is the novel Neuromancer by William Gibson. Not because it has great characters, the male and female leads have all the chemistry of a dial-up modem, not because of its fantastic story, I've read travel guides with a more consistent setting, not for any of the traditional reasons you would like a book, but because it has the invaluable talent to feed the imagination, fill your inspiration, and Dispatch shares a portion of that same skill. I cannot point to a single line of dialogue and say, "Yes, that one, write it in cursive and frame it on my wall." Having embraced the 18+ rating, they throw in innuendo and crotch jokes like they're trying to get picked up by HBO. On my next playthrough, I'm going to have a stopwatch ready and track the average amount of time they can go without mentioning dick. But when it hits, there is a great flow to it. It can be snappy when it wants to be snappy, relaxed when it wants to be relaxed, and even charged when it wants to be charged. Now, of course, the prerequisite for good dialogue is good characters. Thankfully, the cast is all killer, no filler. Some get more than others, but I accept that even in a 7-hour game, there is a limited amount of screen time. I can still be mad about the fact that for all the praise I've seen over Invisigirl, Blonde Blazer, Malvora, and even fucking Sonar, I don't recall seeing anyone mention Royd. Man is there from the beginning to the end, but it seems like no one brings him up because he has neither a big name voice actor or a pair of tits. I'm usually the last one to cite bros before hoes, but when Royd said to leave Vizzy bound to a desk, I'm not ashamed to say I listened. The big man always had my back. Speaking of desks, that's the best segue I'm gonna manage, there is the namesake dispatching, sending heroes to deal with crimes around the lower district of LA. Despite encouraging words, which I did my best to ignore like the rest, I thought this was going to be a gimmick, a time waste between story beats to justify the game part of the video game. But this is the one time I will happily accept egg on my face and say I was wrong, because this kinda rules. To the point it was creating some ludonarrative dissonance within me. The main character Robert is only working this job to finance the repairs to his mech suit, and there's a big deal made if he can still be a hero without the suit, how soon can he get back in the fight, and so on. But I'm over here just enjoying the 9 to 5. If I had my way, I would have sold the mech for parts and gone in full time as the team's Ingrid Hunnigan. I liked being support staff. I was good at being support staff. But I know no one wants to hear about my adventures in babysitting, Guardians of the Galaxy edition. How about we get into the 2 reasons we all know we're here to talk about? As mentioned, I decided to make Miss Mandy my romance of choice. Admittedly, not an easy decision, but she won me out on a few factors. First, because I naturally gravitate toward the calm girls over the hotheads. I may be a lecherous demon child, but I also sing songs from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood in the shower, so you tell me who sounds more like my style. Also because I am a conflict-avoidant introvert. Going to that villain bar, I think I would have had a more relaxing time if I visited Jupiter's red spot. But a candlelit dinner to microwave spaghetti and meatballs? That sounds like the sort of sweet, unpretentious girl who needs to find her way into a wedding dress ASAP. The second reason was because I'm a contrarian, both to myself and the 66% of other people who focus their love for Invisigirl. So I wanted to choose the path less traveled. And for the record, I do not regret the decision even for a moment. Not after my first run, and definitely not after my second. Even with that being the case, I do understand the draw to Vizzy. She may very well be a more well-rounded character than Blazer. Like a good 3-dimensional character, she has a way she looks, a way she acts, and the elements of herself she likes to keep hidden. A little too many elements for my liking. By the end, I was doing everything in my power to help her, and she still had secrets on top of secrets. By that point, it was getting a little difficult to trust her, but I actually think that's a positive rather than a negative. The fact that I was put off by these characteristics enriches the decision of those who weren't. The choice to romance her is not a given. And if nothing else, less for me means more for you. That being said, I think her overwhelming favoritism is influenced by the devs very unsubtly trying to steer players in her direction. Rough guess, the number of Blazer-focused scenes to the number of Vizzy-focused scenes is about 1 to 2. Feels like something of a Triss and Yennefer situation, where there is the woman you can end up with, and there is the girl the writer wants you to end up with. Now, I have to keep my powder a little bit dry here because I'm aware there is a mirror universe where there's a version of me who is upset that there are so many Blazer-focused scenes as he tried to get it on with Vizzy. So to make this clear, I am not advocating for less Vizzy scenes, rather I would want more Blazer scenes. As Invisigirl had her moments on the swing set and by the lockers wondering if she could do good, I would like to further explore blonde Blazer's insecurities over being a brunette. Just a regular woman. Without her powers, she looks like a normal everyday soccer mom without the mom, though I would be happy to help her correct that. There's a potential kiss between her and Robert in episode 1, which even for me was a little bit fast, but f*** it, we ball. However, a few episodes later, Vizzy has a full-on wet dream about Robert that walks the line between soft and hardcore. Fair enough, that's a solid contrast in the difference of MO. But you see what I mean, that one scene has a lot more energy than the other. Really, I just wish they would spread the love around. Show me what kind of wild fantasies Blazer gets up to when she's firing on all 8 cylinders. Actually, this scene with Vizzy does bother me the more I think about it. For one, it's a dream fake-out, which is cheap no matter what way you slice it. For two, it is the only scene that breaks from the narrative. If Dispatch were a novel, it would be third-person limited, with Robert as the eyes-in character. But this is the only scene in the story that breaks from his perspective. Frankly, as much as it pains my gooner heart to say this, it might be better without this scene. Vizzy tells Robert about it later on, but without the objective knowledge, it becomes more compelling. Is she playing more games with him, or is this relationship moving on to the next level? But all of this 1 for you, 2 for me back and forth is the simple fault of the love triangle. The same writing technique used in the Twilight books, though executed much more skillfully in Dispatch. That being said, I continue to agree that there are some fans that have the same level of rabid mania as the Twilight girls. That is perhaps my most succinct summary of the distaste I still feel for this game. Glad as I am to not have let this game pass me by, as I originally intended, the prevailing feeling I have is shame. Because there are a significant number of people out there who would tear the soul from their body if it meant keeping Dispatch relevant for another year. I too would kill to play through this game fresh and blind one more time, but I worry that some people aren't speaking metaphorically. But back on topic, as I said, The Witcher also employed a love triangle. Many others have too, and fundamentally always the same way. The choice between the honest and reliable against the hard and exciting. The decision between Captain Picard or James Bond. And I've already made my choice abundantly clear. Vizzy had a bad habit of resorting to violence, then running away during arguments, and I'm happy to help her solve that. But I would rather share my bed with a woman who only cranks it up to 100 when shit really gets serious. It hits harder to see the sweet girl turn into a soldier, and yeah, this was really the moment I owned my choice of romance.
I can see I'm outnumbered. That eventually I would fall. But by my read, I'm taking a lot of you with me.
So all of you can leave now. Or half of you can die here.
Okay, I take it back. That might actually be the one line of dialogue I want to write in cursive and frame on my wall. Ultimately though, love triangles are cheap. They're a way to try and please everybody while also mining an infinite vein of drama from the back and forth. But the cost factor is that it means that neither side is allowed to fully realize the potential of their relationship. To settle on a foundation of shared fears or loves and build something sturdy upon it. There is potential for Robert and Courtney to bond as two outsiders in the Dispatch organization unsure of their new roles in life. There is potential for Robert and Mandy to confide in one another as two people unsure of themselves when separated from their superpowered blessings. But the need to bounce between them keeps either one from really constructing something strong. Which brings me to a question I had a few times before and during my time with Dispatch. Why does this need to be a video game, as opposed to an Invincible style TV show? Which I didn't think about this until recording, but Invincible also has a love triangle. Because the 2 times thus far I have played Dispatch, it has become depressingly clear how much my choices don't matter. I want to play through this game more. I'm trying to get this video done quickly so I can do another playthrough, but I know to an extent the game will be playing itself because the plot has to hit certain points.
Invisigal, stay calm.
Great fucking advice, Lieutenant Dan.
Stop calling me Lieutenant Dan, because the joke doesn't work and you sound dumb.
Granny doesn't even know how to shoot that thing. Take out the thief first. He's the only one with his finger on the trigger.
You know what? It's my life on the line.
I'm done listening to you. That thing's gonna blow that man's arm off.
And there's a whole building with me in it. Fuck off. I'm disarming the fight.
No, Invisigal, that's a direct order.
Invisigal, stay calm.
Great fucking advice, Lieutenant Dan.
Okay, disarm Granny before the thing blows his face off. It looks super unstable.
So your expert opinion is to
Attack the client. Fuck that.
I did things your way and it turned to shit. I'm taking out the guy who's been trying to kill me.
That wasn't a suggestion, it's a direct...
More than that, I chose to experience the game with the non-interactive mode, because I want to really enjoy the narrative of this narrative-rich game. Which I definitely did, but not in the way you're supposed to enjoy a video game. When you run a marathon, and when you play a game of chess, both can leave you exhausted, but in very different ways. When I was watching the action scenes from Dispatch, I was getting into it. I was excited, but the operative word there is watching. So if watching the game is fundamentally just as fun as playing the game, then why not just go full non-interactive? The obvious counter-arguments to this point are that the devs wanted to make a video game, and that's where their talents lie. That's fine, I accept both of those answers. I wouldn't find a commissioned artist on Twitter and then ask them to write a novel. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to make something in the art form you've come to appreciate. But when you've come this close to the boundary between interactive and passive media, it's important to consider why you're on this side of the boundary. You can be on either side and make great things, but the question remains all the same. So let's all take a step into an alternate universe where Dispatch is an animated TV show, the newest hit on Amazon Prime or something. With this many big names on the cast list, I don't think we have to worry about it being any less popular. I would certainly take a hit because there's no way the Blazer romance gets translated. It would have to be Vizzy who becomes the main girl. But I don't hate her romance, and that would allow the writers to build that stronger relationship that I mentioned earlier. We would lose the first episodic game in history to have some real gameplay, and a show about the support staff is a hard sell, but not a very hard sell. And I think Bobby here is a strong enough character to make it really compelling. There are definitely enough scenes in the break room to make it work. So it's important to think about why we want this to be a game instead of anything else. And I did say we, because I also want this to continue as a video game. Ad Hoc Studio have made their choice of medium, and I don't want them to change that. Stay on the road you've started down. Now, there is one more bad section we have to get through before we can wrap up. The part of Dispatch that completely fell off for me. No understanding, no, personally I thought this, but someone else could think that. None of it. This part just did not come off for me, and that was the ending. I do not mean the last episode. It was thrilling defending the city. I don't mean the end with all the photos. That was appropriately endearing. I was even getting into a large portion of the final fight, despite some very forced lines, and the consistent problem with superhero fights where all the attacks look massive, but everyone shrugs them off until the last minute. Still, I can deal with all of that except for this one moment, that one flat note in the song you cannot unhear. So after the big bad has been brought down, his doomsday weapon has been wrecked, that's when he decides to pull out his trump card. Turns out he kidnapped Robert's dog, at some point, and now threatens to kill it. To which every character in the roster throws up their hands in surrender. I'm not even sure if 5 of these characters had any meaningful interactions with that dog, but my main thought is, that's all it takes? Don't get me wrong, I liked the dog. I've never really gotten attached to video game pets the same as others, but it was endearing and it was nice to have in a few scenes. But the guy started off this battle in a Wild Wild West style spider mech. Your henchmen were implied to be killing civilians. You yourself were just trying to kill the entire cast, including both of the love interests. And again, not 5 minutes ago, we had this fight all wrapped up. But now, truly the tables have turned in my favor, because I have the dog, and I shall kill it if I do not get what I want. In the immortal words of Colonel James Rhodes, I think you should lead with that next time. Man could have saved himself a spider mech if he'd just broken into Robert's apartment. So yeah, this didn't vibe with me. Some may say this was satire, or maybe even intentionally humorous. Massive stakes to minor ones. But then, why aren't I laughing? And why am I supposed to be laughing at the villain threatening to kill a dog? And why isn't there anything anyone can throw, sneak, portal, fly, distract, or run to get him to drop the dog? We have like 15 options to fix this in this one shot. Still, plot will be plot, and the man gets his thing, so now he can see through the very code of the universe. And with his newfound power, his first action is to try and shoot Robert. I feel the need to point this out for a third time, but you started off blasting everyone with neutron lasers to get the thing. Now you got the thing, and the next step is 357? Feels like we could have seen that coming. But the real issue I have is that even with his predictive mind, he's still just a dude. His gun runs out of bullets, then Robert just strolls over and kicks the shit out of him. So sure, hand him the MacGuffin, we'll get it back in an hour when every hero in the state dogpiles on him. Yeah, he can see the very strands of the universe, but without the spider mech, what's stopping Blazer from just throwing a bus at him? It's the equivalent of Spider-Man with all his Spidey sense and none of his Spidey anything else. Of course, none of this ruined my experience, nor do I think it should ruin anyone else's. The point is just that even in this massively, overwhelmingly positively reviewed game on Steam, there is still room for improvement. And I believe that it will, with time. Which leads me to the last thing I want to say, or rather, retract. In my other video, I said that I hoped that Dispatch would not get a Season 2. That is one thing I do not uphold anymore. I would like to see a Season 2 at some point, just like the rest of the community who has played this game. So it's fair to say I understand much better now. I have taken that other video down, by the way, because even though it still had its points, it also no longer adequately represents my opinion. Besides, I've already admitted that I'm eating my own words by enjoying this game so completely, but I would rather be wrong and happy than right and fucking miserable. Now, final thoughts as we begin to wrap up. The world building in this story is very threadbare, let's be honest. Nothing major. Like space travel and science fiction, superheroes have become part of pop culture for long enough that you can get away with hand-waving a lot of the details. And besides, it's the characters that are the focus, which I enjoy and respect. But Blazer alludes to a backstory in episode 1 that never gets a follow-up, which makes me sad. And out of the 12 superheroes on the cast list, I think I can name where a full 3 of them got their powers. So we'll just make a sticky note to hit more of that in Season 2. Next criticism is one I think we can all agree on. Now that we've broken through the 18+ barrier, I think we can move beyond dirty jokes, tongue kissing, and a few topless scenes. I made the comparison to HBO earlier, and I think we all know what that implies. Personally, if I was on the writing team, I would put in a scene of Mandy riding Robert like she was trying to escape the police on a bike with no seat. But don't worry, I would also ensure there is a scene of Vizzy's dream come true, as Robert goes down on her like a blind man eating a taco. I have to put all these wonderful ideas here at the end, otherwise this video will not only not get monetized, it will also get nuked from fucking orbit. Moving on, after what feels like a decade of Superman, but evil, I was happy to see that Phenomenon was not just that again. More like Superman, but bipolar. But I take what I can get. I think Coop got put in a rotten place having to compete in a popularity contest against one of the most well-known YouTubers ever. Speaking of which, I also think Jacksepticeye did a fantastic job as Punch-Up, completely making himself one with the role. I am still shocked they used actual Twinkies and other brand names in this game. I'm not entirely sure if that was a deal or how they got away with that. And last but not least, my ideal story for this game would be working the dispatch job, then going home with Blonde Blazer to get some microwave spaghetti for dinner and a boxed lunch for dessert. Yes, I said that before, but I wanted to say it again. My deepest, darkest, borderline unrealistic fantasy is to have a tough but rewarding 9 to 5, then go home to an equally fulfilled wife for a bit of rest and relaxation. Welcome to 2026, everyone. Things can only get worse. Finally, I'd like to thank the artists who contributed their work for this video. Joseph Virtuoso, who worked with me before on the Haiti video, returned to help me make the thumbnail for this video, which came together very well. Simply Eric made a great Robert and Courtney piece a while back, so I commissioned him to do the same with Mandy, and a Robert that looks shockingly close to myself, but that's my own fault for being a white guy with brown hair. I didn't pay Cody Art to make this, but I did speak with them and this image is just fantastic, so I wanted to use it. Despite speaking with Scotcho, we were not able to fit in any of his work, but he does have some and I can personally attest that it is very good. And finally there are these 3, whose names have unfortunately been lost to me in the shuffle of retweets, cross-posting, and so on, but thankfully they have all signed their work. Otherwise, thank you for watching, I'll see you next time, and because I have a tradition I need to keep, Mandy is my big favorite.